How many podcasts do you come across that have the balls to open up and let everything out there? And not only that, but let you say what you want to say. Well, that's why we're here. This is Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. An open forum where you're part of the show. Real, raw, and nothing is off limits. And we do mean nothing. So light it up and let's set this bitch on fire. Truth, lies, and political bullshit. And now your host, Sean Morse.
Hey, Phil, Sean Morse from Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, I love to have you on because I think you're a fucking maniac, man. I mean, I tell people the other day we're having a podcast. A lot of people said to me, hey, Sean, can we have a podcast about MMA fighting or, how do you get into MMA or what's it like to be in MMA? And I said, look, I got a guy. When you look up tough in the dictionary, his picture pops up. The guy's 59
that right next to old.
Well, I was going to say 59 years old. Still fighting like a maniac, training like a maniac. You're the epitome of what it takes to be a champion. You're the
I appreciate
epitome.
that.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I've been watching these kids, right? Look, I was an old bar fighter, right? Couple shots of whiskey, I could take on the world. I was pretty tough. Don't think I ever even got beat up. I've been in a lot of fights. But today, somebody would choke me out with my own shirt, and I'd be like, what the hell just happened, right? Because the kids today are like these dedicated animals. I got to say it because they want to just go out there and be able to kick the shit out of people. And it's amazing. And you're 59.
Yeah, I've been privileged to see the whole growth of the sport from the early days in the grassroots, where you actually had a lot of guys walking out of a bar and fighting in the cage, to the point where it's evolved into a sport where the athletic talent that some of these kids are bringing to the sport now are incredible. You're getting D1 wrestlers, former football players, former basketball players. Like, you're getting elite level athletes coming into the sport. And the sport has grown and adapted so much from the early days that, on one hand, I used to love the early days of style versus style. But as a sport, I think it's so much better now as a sport. As blood sport and spectacle, maybe not.
Well, I think the cool part, right? Here's the cool part. It has evolved, and it hasn't been like 100 years, right? I'm 55 years old, right? When I was bar fighting, when I was 20, 22, 23, 25, somewhere in that area. I kind of grew up somewhere after I had my son. But there was no such thing, right? You watch Bruce Lee, you watch some, kickboxing from Rocky when he fought the guy from Russia. In real life, he was a kickboxer, and a couple times you could catch him on ESPN, stuff like that, right? But there was no real mixed martial arts on TV, UFC.
Well, what's funny is, a lot of people give credit to mixed martial arts coming out of Brazil, Val Tudo. That's what they originally called it. But then, back in the 50s, you had Gene LaBelle fighting Milo Savage in a mixed martial arts bout,
Yeah, right.
And choked him out.
It's been around, but it hasn't been like broadcasted all across the world. It's kind of like anything else, right? I mean, people were doing it. People have been fighting, and they've been fighting in mixed martial arts from the beginning of time. Bruce Lee, the whole,
One thing I will tell you, you go throughout societal history, and wherever we've had groups of people, there's always been some sort of systemized fighting style, whether it's in Burma and Lethway, whether it's in ancient Egypt. They have reliefs of people wrestling. Wrestling goes back to the early Olympics. They had pancration in the early Olympics, where guys would basically fight. And it's like I tell people, anytime people get together, hey, listen, it's a man thing. I can't. As much as we try to civilize, in society, we try to civilize, what men trait are. In other words, now the big thing is toxic masculinity. Okay. And I'm one of those people that, in my idea, toxic masculinity, it doesn't exist. Okay. If I'm a guy who beats my wife, I'm not a toxic masculine guy. I'm not a fucking man.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I know.
Okay, in other
I
words,
know
like,
better than most, believe me.
right, nobody wants the warrior until the wolves are at the door. Then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, thank God you're here. And it's kind of like, as long as we've had men getting together. And listen, I can remember years ago, I went to a pagan party, and one of the guys knew I was a fighter. And I'll never forget it because it threw me. Guy walks up to me, and no disrespect at all. He looks at me and he goes, I gotta know. And I'm like, huh? I got to know if I can beat you. So we get up, we fight, we spend the rest of the night drinking beer together.
Yeah, that's the old days. That's how I met some of my closest friends, man. Let me tell you something. I got a couple pictures. I just want to put up the screen for the audience to see. I mean, here you are, uh, kicking ass at a ripe age
This was at Submission Underground, and this is when I was 55.
yeah. Here you are, right? 55 years old, fighting these people, and you're fighting like a savage at that age. And I say that because here you are, they're raising your hand. Look at the size of that guy whose ass you kicked, right?
That was last May.
Yeah, he looks a little younger than you, and you look like you're 59 years old. Only because your hair. I hate to say it, I have the same kind of hairline, but I'd never know you're 55, except for you got the white beard like me, right?
One of my students said they attached an old guy's head to a 25-year-old body.
Well, that's what when I see you, I say that. I say this guy looks like he's got a 25-year-old body, but we all get old, right? You got some gray whiskers, our hair starts to thin out a little, but I'll tell you something. At 59, you're showing everybody in the world what can be done if you put your mind and heart to it. You have to first in this business, in my mind, be an animal, right? You just have to have this animal instinct. And then you have to have this commitment like no other because you have to train and train. And if you got that animal instinct and you can train and give your life to this, man, anything can happen. The top of the world for you, man, because, it is a growing sport. People are making millions of dollars. Kids are seeing it. Amateurs are fighting like they're pros, training like they're pros, eating like they're pros, giving up their life like they're pros, all for that shot, right? To be the tough guy. Isn't it amazing?
Honestly, it's so much. Honestly, it's so much more than that. Okay, because when you walk out there, I will tell you, fighting is one of the purest things you can do. Okay, in other words, for me, I'm addicted to that moment when the ref looks at me and says, "Are you ready?" He looks at my opponent and says, "Are you ready?" And he says, "Go," and we lock up.
Yeah.
That moment when the whole world fades away and it's just me and him. I am addicted to that moment. There's
Yeah.
no rush like it.
There's an addiction to fighting. My brother used to say, I'm not even going out with you because all you're going to do is get in a fight. But you know what? The two tough guys or the three tough guys or the guy who looks bigger than you or you feel like he's so much bigger than you want to knock him on his ass, somehow they all kind of morph into one spot. And it's the man blood sport. But now there's women too in there kicking some ass. There's some
Oh
real tough
yeah,
women. And
that's one of the things is I've had a lot of women come into the gym. In fact, I had a woman compete that trained with me in Vegas. She competed for the first time in grappling Saturday, and she was somebody who I never pictured competing when she first came in. Hell, it took her 3 years. She was contacting me every few months for 3 years, and for her, it was so far outside her comfort zone. But once she came in, she got addicted to it.
yeah, I can see the addiction. I can see, you go to the gym, you work out, you're bored, right? You're in there looking at the clock. I know I used to go to the gym. I got some injuries now I'm struggling with, but I used to go to the gym and after like 45 minutes, I'm like, I go every day, but I got to get the hell out of here. I'm not spending 2-3 hours, but I could see how you could be,
Well,
training.
even if you just train to stay in shape, I'm
Yeah.
not talking you have any aspirations to be a fighter. You just want to get. There's no workout like it. In other words, just picture. Let's just grappling. You're laying on the ground. There's a 200-pound man on top of you, crushing the life out of you, and you're trying to get him off.
Yeah.
There's no workout in the
Yeah.
world like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Striking, just holding your hands up for 3 rounds while somebody's punching you is going to be a workout. So I always tell people it's a great workout, but as a workout, one of the nice things about it is if you go to the gym, an hour workout is an hour workout. 45 minutes on a treadmill seems like 8 hours.
Yeah. Sure.
I start training and 2 hours goes by and I'm like, where'd the time go?
Yeah, that's because when you do something you love, I used to say to all my kids, if you find a job you love, you never worked a day in your life. When you're training and doing something you love, it's not even like training. It's just like doing something you love, right? And you
Right,
can't wait to
right.
keep doing it, right? So, Phil, I kind of want to talk about the journey, right? Because I can't imagine anybody who knows the journey better than you. Because here you are still fighting at 59. You told me you're close to being 60. And you've been doing it for 20 years, 30 years. How long you been?
I had my first professional kickboxing match at 15 in Burma.
All right. So you've been doing this for,
I've been training as long as I can remember. I grew up doing it,
yeah.
like, and it's one of those things. And I will be honest with you, it's like I love training amateur fighters. I love those first steps in the growth of a
So let's
fighter.
talk about that.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that. So I want to be a fighter, right? So I decide, okay, the first thing I have to decide is, do I want to get into either a business or some type of program, whether it be amateur, and
I always tell people now. Remember, a lot of people do it ass backwards. Some guy thinks he's a tough guy. He contacts a promoter, and a promoter puts him in a fight.
yeah, stupid.
It's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, you get your ass kicked.
Okay. Yeah. I always say find a school, a coach, go to a couple schools, find somebody that you hit it off with. Okay. On the level of, okay, first of all, you're looking for a good coach, somebody who knows what he's doing. But once you get past that, you need somebody he's on the same wavelength as you. Okay. In other words, like when I was in my 30s and I was coming back to being an active fighter. I was a guy who fought, who was learning to teach. Now I'm a teacher who happens to still compete. And like I say, in other words, you get people who their goal is to make the student as best as possible.
You need to put that in a
Okay.
fortune cookie, kid.
Right. Other people, their goal is to promote their school. I
Yeah.
say find somebody who has interests similar to yours. They want you to do well as an amateur. Okay. And it's one of those things like I start to burn out on the pros. Okay. Because then it starts to become part of the process is they need to be much more self-centered.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And I will not let one student take away from the overall good of the program.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So that's why I like the amateurs. In other words, there's such a purity of why they're doing it. First, they're doing it because they want to do it. There's no money involved. They want to go out there. They want to. And I always tell people the amateurs is either if you're a person who just wants to have a couple fights to do it,
Mhm.
amateurs are perfect for you. Okay, if you're somebody who wants to be a high level pro, okay, the amateurs are where you learn to be a
Well,
pro.
we had a conversation the other day, and you said something that, it just makes so much sense and stuck in my head, right? Every man thinks he's so tough that he can walk into the UFC and beat the shit out of the champion, right? But nobody says that about playing against Michael Jordan. Nobody says
Yes,
nobody says that
fighting
about playing
fighting
against
seems to
the
be the only thing. Because I used to hear guys. Oh yeah, I think I could go a couple rounds with Mike Tyson. No, you
yeah, my
can't.
ass you could. You
You'll
could go a
die.
couple rounds as a punching bag
Well,
until
no.
it
I
kills
tried to
you.
explain to somebody. Now,
Yeah.
if you got in a ring with Mike Tyson, this is going to be the closest thing I can structure it to. Stand in front of a five-story building, put a burlap sack over your head, and have somebody drop bowling balls on you. Okay? Because I got to be honest with you. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks, maybe he'll crack me. No, he's going to go with a hook to the body, extending your chin, and you're not going to see the hook that knocks you out, and it's probably going to cause brain damage.
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay?
isn't it amazing though what men think? Isn't it amazing that we're such pompous bastards that we think we can just walk into the ring with Mike Tyson and say we could beat him, or I can go to
it,
UFC and I could beat him, or I could have
oh,
took Bruce Lee, that little bastard. But the reality is, right? You're not saying
it's
that about
so
other
much
sports.
better nowadays than it used to be, though, because everybody now knows some guy who, for the sake of argument, did a little bit of boxing or kickboxing, is a BJJ blue belt, and has played with him and got housed.
Yeah, I'll
So
bet you
it's
have.
not like in the old days where guys used to come in. Like I can remember some guy contacting me on the phone. Okay, and remember I was near the city at the time. I was in the New Jersey area. Guy comes out from the Bronx. He wants to take. Basically, he calls me up and he says, "I want to be a pro fighter. I'm going to take your best 185 pounder spot. And like I tell him on the phone, I go, dude, that's not the way it works. You come in, you train. I decide when you're ready for a fight. I book you a fight. There's not spots you take.
Right.
In other words, I might have 10 185 pounders. It's not like a team where you get a spot. Okay, but he just keeps going on. So he comes in. Okay, so I pair him up with a guy who's 185 pounds, who's a kickboxer. And he's a really nice guy, but he's like 6'4" and lanky. And he always starts out real slow. I paired him up because I knew he was really good at sparring with new guys. He's popping the kid with jabs, and the kid's throwing wild haymakers at him. So he keeps looking over his shoulder at me. And I scream over at him. I go, Dan, green light. And when I say green light, it's time to teach him a lesson. All of a sudden, you see the right leg just come up, crack across his chin, and he's out.
Yeah.
Now, here's the best part. His uncle was there, who was going to be his manager, and his girlfriend was there with the video camera videotaping it. I thought she was going to lose her shit. Okay, but he's kind of like, it's like, I always say, if you if you call out a pro fighter and you go to his gym, okay, I qualify that under play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's kind of like you don't understand. You may think you're strong, but when you're bench pressing, he's training fighting. When you're out partying with your friends, he's training fighting. Yeah. When you're out with your girlfriend, he's training fighting. So you're going to fight with him. Makes a lot of sense.
And when you're a fighter, when you are a trained, well-oiled machine fighter, and you're an animal on your mind, right? You don't want to lose, and you're going to use everything you can to win. These other people don't have that. They just think they're tough, right? Thinking you're tough and then finding out that you're not so tough is a wake-up call. And a lot of kids must walk right out.
I always tell people being tough is a full-time job.
Yeah, right.
And what people don't understand is, you may have been tough in high school. And I'm just talking the tough quotient. Okay, what have you done since high school?
Yeah.
Okay, in other words, in high school, you may have had 10 fights. I fight harder than that every day in a friggin' gym.
Well, isn't there a difference between tough and trained? I mean, you can be a tough guy.
I always classify it as, if you train, you're going to get tough.
Yeah.
Okay, but I always quantify it as there's trained and there's tough. And take a look at something. If your only ability is toughness, now what that's going to boil down to is your ability to take punishment.
Yeah, you're going to get beat up a lot longer than most people, but you're still going to get the shit kicked out of you.
But now, like I used to tell people, well, I have an unlimited tank of ass kicking in me. Okay, I don't have an unlimited tank of taking an ass kicking. Okay, so if I'm punching you in the head, I don't care how tough you are. If you're not punching me in the head back, eventually your head's going to be asleep.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I see a lot of tough kids. You see them playing football. You see, you say, hey, he's a tough kid. Look, he can take a beating, right? But that's not what you want to do when you're in a professional or even an amateur sport where your goal is to win. Not taking a beating. You don't want to take a beating. You want to give a fucking beating. You want to be the savage on top of the guy kicking the shit. And without the training, you ain't going to be able to do that, no matter how tough you are.
I'm not a huge fan of Mayweather because he does just enough to win. But I understand what he's doing. In other words, his defense is unreal.
He's got great skills.
Right. So the idea is his whole motto is, if I don't get hit, so it's kind of like, I view fighting as you got to get the guy out of there. Okay. I grew up in Burmese boxing, which 3 knockouts wins the fight. So in other words, I might have to knock you out a third time to win. So I'm trying to knock you out every time I throw something. So the idea is I try to tell people there's skill involved. There's toughness involved. Okay. You have to have toughness coming to the table. If you don't, you're not even going to last through training.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your school, right? You have the White Rhino School. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, I have the Asylum Fight Team is my fight team, but I have a White Rhino BJJ, Lethway, Naban. It's like it's
Tell us what
basically
tell us
it's
what
the
that.
styles we teach.
Okay.
But I picked up the nickname White Rhino in Burma. I won my first 9 fights by headbutt, and then I had 28 knockouts by headbutt. Okay, and it's one of those things where if you can't figure it out, I loved headbutts. I've got an
Yeah, I guess
enormous
so.
hard head. And I'm also one of those people, I can take an unlimited amount of punishment. In 119 pro and amateur fights, I've never been knocked off my feet.
Oh, that's amazing. Amazing. Well, hey, listen, here's what I do know. I know that there's a lot of kids who talk the good game, kids, guys, whatever, anybody, all tough people, right? And truth, lies, and political bullshit fits right into that, right? Because I've
Yeah.
heard the truth where kids say, I'm okay, I'm pretty tough. I've heard the bullshit that said, I'm the toughest guy ever seen. And I heard the lies that said, I knocked out 6 guys and he's never been in a fight, right? But the great part is they walk into your school. Now I'm coming in because I want to learn how to fight the right way. Forget about the
Yes.
big mouths. Now let's talk about the kid listening to this podcast. I look you up. I do some research on you. I find out you got a head like a fucking tree. You can't knock you out. You've been fighting for 40 years. You're still fighting at 59. And I say, this is the guy I want to train me. So I call you up. I come in. I imagine I sign up for your school. And then I start the process, the long, steady, painful, grinding process, right?
The first thing I tell guys, if they come in and their goal is to be a fighter, my first question is, why? Okay, most people spend their whole lives trying to avoid getting punched in the face. Okay, now you're gonna come to face punching class on Tuesday night, and on top of that, you're gonna pay money to get punched in the face.
Yeah.
Okay, so something about that is counterintuitive. Now, my job, okay, as what I like to consider myself as a caring, compassionate coach, okay, is to convince you.
What does that mean? You only headbutt him half the time?
Yes, my job is to convince you you don't want to be a fighter, which entails me putting you through hell and making you decide that this is really stupid.
All right, Phil, let's
Now-
get past that now then, all right? You
now,
did that to
you're-
me. I
You're
come to your
like
school.
you're like me. You're functionally retarded. Okay, and this seems like a good experience to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so my job now is to get you ready for anything you're going to experience in the ring. And like I tell people, I'm one of those old school leaders. I believe you lead from the front lines. Okay, nothing bothers me more than a coach with a big ass belly screaming at somebody what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, that's like going
Okay.
to the doctor who's 400 pounds and he's telling you got to lose
Right.
10 pounds.
I don't ask you to do anything you don't see me doing on a daily basis. I train with the guys, I work out, I'm in shape, I eat right. So in other words, I lead by example.
So
Okay, and I try to tell people this is not the lifestyle you want. This is a lifestyle of sacrifice. Okay, because you're going in, if you're going to be a fighter, you're not training twice a week. Okay, if you really want to be a fighter 6 times a week, just on skills coming to class. That's not including cardio, strength and conditioning. Okay, now you've got to watch what you eat. Okay, because we got weight classes. Then the idea is you want to maximize all your attributes. So you're going to train, you're going to eat right. Now your buddies want to go out on a Friday night, have beer and pizza. You can't. You have to train Saturday morning. You got a weight limit you have to make. Your wife or girlfriend wants to go out to dinner on Thursday, but you got sparring on Friday. You can't. Okay, you can't. You can't eat crap the night before. You're gonna like. So the idea is suddenly you don't have a girlfriend anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not what people think it is. Everybody thinks it's a ring card girl on each arm and a championship belt around your waist. Okay, now I'll be honest with you, you see a lot of guys like Conor McGregor. When that happened, he started to like the soft life too much and he started to get beat.
Yeah.
So the idea is a life of denial. You have to embrace the suck. If you don't embrace the suck, you're screwed. Like I always told people, one of the toughest parts for a lot of guys of fighting is making weight.
Well, I know that. I know that for a fact because, I used to do a little boxing, and we had Uncle Sam's Boxing in Troy. And I never thought I'd be good, but I was always trying to figure out how can I stay in some kind of shape, right? I had that weird little body. I was 220 pounds, but I'm only 5'8". Even though I was in great shape, I'm
Yeah.
sparring over there, and every guy who's 226'5", right? So, I got their bellies up, and I'm looking up thinking, I can't even hit the guy in the freaking puss. And if you can't punch him in the nuts, I can't win this fight, right? So there's too many rules here, right? But I understood that because I used to say I always want to stay about 215. I'd be at 230. I go back to 215. I go, how did I get back to 230? I don't even know. And that
But
dedication of staying healthy like that it's
but
hard.
also, what I'm actually talking about is the last minute water cut.
I don't even know how you can. I
Okay.
watched it on TV. I watched a show about it. People were almost dying.
For the
Truthfully,
sake of argument, I had two guys fighting on a card, and I got a last minute call. And I had about a month before I had bulked up because I was going against a lot of big guys in the ultra heavyweight division. I had bulked up and I'd gotten almost 230 pounds. It was just too much muscle for me to carry. And then what happened is their main event fell off, and they asked me if I'd take a grappling match against a kid at 205. So basically, I had to cut 25 pounds in 24
yeah,
hours.
that's harder than anything you have to.
I was cutting with a couple kids that were fighting, and one of them had to cut 4 pounds. He broke. When I say he broke in a whirlpool, he kept getting out and crying about how hard it was, and I just went off on him. Okay, because I dropped 25 pounds before he dropped 4.
But is that healthy? I mean, let's think about this, right? I mean,
I don't like that. I don't
it's
like. First of all, my rule of thumb for fighting, I don't want my guys cutting more than 10% of body weight.
I watched a documentary on TV, and it was about UFC fighters. I say UFC. It may have been a different
MMA,
organization,
yeah.
right? But it was MMA. But I thought it was the UFC. They were getting ready to fight some major matches. Some of these people had to go to such extremes to lose 4 pounds or 5 pounds that they ended up having like arrhythmias in their hearts. That they were
I've
sitting.
seen guys cut weight wrong.
Well, I don't know.
Oh,
These were guys, Phil, that were professionals
doesn't mean
with
they're doing it
supposedly
right.
the best trainers, the best everything, and I thought to myself, that's dangerous. I
It
mean,
it can be very dangerous because I've known guys go into renal failure.
well, that's what they
Okay.
were having. They had a guy on the show. A guy went in a renal failure. One had arrhythmias of his heart. But here's another thing that was dangerous, and nobody talked about it. So he had to get down to like 205, I believe the number was. I'll just use that for the purpose of the argument. He's got to get down to 205. He's 215, right? So this guy's got to lose 11 pounds. Is that what it is? He's got to lose
Yeah,
11
which isn't
pounds.
considered that much for a cut.
Yeah. So think about he's losing 11 pounds, right? He gets down to the 11 pounds. The other guy's a natural 205. He ain't got to do shit, right?
Mhm.
He's actually got to eat some more to stay at 205.
Right.
So this guy gets down, they weigh in, he gets down to 205. Now they're both 205. 2 days later, when the fight comes in, the guy's 210 again, 215, and he's fighting the guy who's 205. It's almost like, wait a minute, that's not even right. That's not fair because now I'm fighting a guy who's 10 pounds heavier than me because I lost all this weight and it's all water. And then I go drink some water and poof, I come right back to where I am. So it's got to be some kind of,
It's a balancing act.
yeah, it's got to be balanced both ways, especially if you're a boxer. Say you're a boxer.
Yeah,
I'm a boxing at 180.
My whole thing is it's not like performance enhancing drug use.
No, I'm not
Okay?
saying that.
No. What I'm saying is I don't consider it unfair because it's allowable within the rules we sign up for.
Well, look, the rules have to be that you have to fight at a certain weight class, right? But you can't change the fact that if I weigh that on Friday, but Saturday night when the fight is, I put on 10 pounds because it was all water. And
That's why if you want to fix that, you should do same day weigh-ins.
Well, that's my argument. That's what I'm asking you, right? Is it fair to say that you got to cut off, but then you got all this guy cutting the weight and he's exhausted. So if he weighs in the same day and fights that night, he's going to be exhausted from hours and hours and hours of trying to sweat. Now,
Well,
I don't know the answer.
Like for the sake of argument, even for grappling, I would never cut weight for same day event.
Yeah, I think it's a
I will
possibility.
not cut weight unless I have 24 hours to rehydrate.
Yeah, I think there has to be a fair number, and I'm just, I'm not.
Well,
a
there's a lot of
professional.
things. There's a lot of things coming in now where they're going to have, like in California, they have 2 weigh-ins. Okay, won the day before, and that's your weight class, but you're only allowed to gain a certain amount of weight
Okay, now
after
I'm
that.
okay. That's a great idea, right? So if you're a 220-pound guy and you cut down to 205, and the fight is a 205 fight, we're not going to let you come in at 220 and kick the shit
Well,
out of somebody because you're
I'm
that
I'm
much bigger.
actually a perfect example of that because between you and I weigh in. It's like two different people. Like if I took a match at 205, like I'm only around 218, 220 right now. So I took a match at 200 pounds. Okay, I would look like a different person weighing in
Yeah,
than the
I
next day.
imagine. Yeah,
Because the next day at that match at 205, I weighed in at 205. The next day it was 228.
yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like I actually look like a physically different person. I look like an AIDS victim when I weigh in. And I'm actually more jacked than when I started because my veins are sticking out.
Yeah, so
Okay,
you put
so
that.
it's crazy.
Yeah, you're pumped up. You're pumped up. But so let me just kind of rewind for mine. So I come to your gym. You let me come in. I pay my fee to come in. I show you that I'm training like an animal. I got what it takes to be a hard fighter, tough guy, train like an animal, doing my cardio, doing my workout, and all of a sudden you say, I think this guy's pretty good. He's got a long way to go, but I think we can get him into what, an amateur fight if he
Yeah,
wants to.
when you're ready, what I'll normally do is I'm a little bit odd, and I like to see how you respond to
You
coaching
headbutted
beforehand.
people 45 times. You got to be somewhat
Hey, I
odd.
also suffer from CTE. That might be the reason.
Well, I wonder why. You're hitting your head
And,
like a tree.
but it's funny because like I always I either try to get them to take a kickboxing match or a grappling match first. Okay, because I want to see how they respond to coaching. Okay, because how do I phrase this? There's something that I've seen a bunch of guys that are gym killers. Like I've seen guys in the gym that I thought were world class. Put them in competition and they bite the pooch.
Yeah. Right.
They just can't bring who they are to the competition environment. I always joke around. It's like when you watch the movie The Green Mile. Guy may be a badass on death row, but when they take him out of that cell for that final walk,
Yeah.
you don't know if he's going to crumble until he does it or not. Okay, same thing with fighting because you're sitting around all day waiting. It kills a lot of guys.
Yeah.
A lot of guys get overwhelmed by the crowd. So there's a lot of variables in that. So I like to see them perform in competition in something smaller like kickboxing or grappling so that I can see how they respond to my coaching. Do they hear me? And I may be the loudest motherfucker in the world when I'm coaching because you will hear me from the other side of the door.
Well, that's what I wanted. When I'm trying to figure out what to do, I want to hear my coach screaming.
But I'm
at
not
me.
coaching you really. I'm like I joke around. I could leave a video, an audio recording. Breathe. Keep your weight down. Move to your lead. It's the same stuff because you can't. Guys in there, you can't teach him something. It's too late.
Yeah. If
He
you don't
already
have
learned
if
everything he needs to know. You just got to let him know he's not in there alone.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you just got to talk them back through it, right? Sometimes, like you just said, look, there's got to be something to be said. Like if you're in the middle of a 3-round fight, let's say an amateur fight, and I don't even know if you can do this in amateurs, but somebody's choking, you can't breathe, and all of a sudden the bell rings, and you get up and you're like, holy shit, nothing more scary than I can't breathe. He's got to come to you, and you got to convince him to go back out there in case.
I always joke around. I take your mouthpiece out. I say quiet because I always try to talk to you right away. I give him a hit of water. I say, take a breath. Deep exhale. Gets all the air out of the lungs, fresh air in. And then I ask them what they're feeling. Because that's going to tell me what they need. Okay, if they come back to me with, oh, this motherfucker is fast. Now I know what they need. Or this motherfucker is just too strong. Okay, now I know what I need to tell them and how I need to coach them to deal with it. Because between you and I, there's certain things, and I always try to explain this to people. You can watch videotape of an opponent, and he looks fast. You don't appreciate how fast until you're the one in front of him. And what I mean by that is, I used to be a speed merchant. Okay, now I move like a banana slug. Okay, like my first rule at school is don't let the fat old guy on top because he's not getting off. And the idea is like my students swear when I'm striking that I'm fast. I'm not fast, I'm sudden. You don't see the punch coming. It's not that punch gets there fast. You just never saw it coming. Yeah. Okay, and that's what I mean by you can't judge by watching a video. The guy may seem really fast, but he may have that ability to completely non-telegraph his punch, so it seems like 90 times faster to the guy getting hit.
Yeah, yeah. So now these kids are they've been through the ropes. They're training hard. You recognize that they have what it takes to at least get into the amateurs and start a little career moving forward with the amateurs. And I shouldn't say career, but I'll say you get in the amateurs and you start having what's the word that I'll use? You're good enough to fight,
You're
and
good
you
enough
want
to fight, and you belong.
and you belong. Okay, there you
Okay,
go.
like I said, I've had certain guys that were on the journey. I always joke. I joke around. It's the I just want to do it before I can't journey. Guys whose whole goal is to take 1 amateur, 2 amateur fights, and like they have no
Yeah, right.
aspirations. You handle them a little bit differently. But if I'm talking about a guy whose aspiration is to be a pro, okay, I'm going to book him a fight against, his first fight's going to be against another 0-0 guy, an 0-1, a 1-0. Okay, the first step in the ladder. Okay, it's going to let me know how he responds to the pressure, how he brings his technique from the gym into the ring. And then sometimes, you're sitting there on the side and you're going, okay, this kid's special. Okay, because the guy you have in the gym not only shows up, but he shows up tenfold. Because I got to be honest with you, there's guys, just as there's guys that don't translate from the gym to the cage, there's guys who, when it's game time, like Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, they show. Okay, every once in a while, you got somebody special, so you start booking him a little bit harder. And the goal really is, I always say with a fighter, is to find their really, and I realize this is a cold way to look at it, but as a coach, you want to find their ceiling. And what I mean by their ceiling, okay, does this guy actually have pro potential?
I want to just show you a quick little snapshot. Watch this for a minute. Can you see that?
Yes.
So this is my young cousin. His name's Chris.
He's a featherweight, huh?
He is a tough son of a bitch, right? And the dedication that he has. I mean, he's a young kid. He's got a family. He's trying to be a great pro at the the MMA fighting. I'm sure he's got to work. He's got to take care of his kids. I want to show you a little bit about. Excuse me. I want to show you a little of a fight that he's been in.
Very cool.
He gets. I thought he was going to get his ass kicked because you'll see when he gets kicked to the head. But the dedication, the training, the stamina, and the animal instinct that he has to win is just amazing. I'm
You
admired.
can't coach that.
No, and I admire the kid because I just look at him in awe and say, holy shit, most people who got kicked like that, their head have fell off and you keep fighting. But take a look at this.
Disnell's volume has been way higher in the second round than it was in the first.
Definitely.
He's landing a lot because of the volume.
50 seconds left of the second round. He hit him there with that right.
Disnell's eye looks like he's starting to swell a little. Starting to cover up more, but he's not moving. He's not taking those angles. Answers with a left right there.
Yeah,
Disnell.
Matt Vay's right
Boards
eye is
are
starting
right.
to swell, yeah.
Oh, big head kick!
Oh my goodness,
What a
that was
recovery!
great.
Holy moly,
You
what a
talk
head
about
kick.
recovery. Holy crap.
Now he's throwing
Hey, don't
punches.
count that right head kick again, though. It's coming.
Poke him in the eye.
Oh, big shot!
Oh my goodness.
Disnell's going for the finish.
Wow. Does he recover? Oh, he's recovered. Oh my goodness. What a recovery. Oh, he's got that clinch.
Oh, and he comes out of it. Matt Vay's still going. He's bleeding.
He stopped it.
Oh, what a fight, ladies and gentlemen.
That might have been an early stoppage.
You might say that, but
Now that's pretty amazing, right?
That's a tough son of a bitch. I love it.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I got to be honest with you. You can't coach, number one, toughness. But number two, I always tell people fighting is a mental game. And you need to be that guy that you can be getting your ass kicked for 14 minutes. And there's a minute left. And you're still getting your ass kicked, figuring out how you're going to win this fight.
yeah. And when I watched that fight, it took me back to a minute and I said, holy shit, he's in trouble here, right? This guy just got a shot off the side of his head with a wonderful kick.
And I'll be honest with you, having been there, like Now you're on instinct.
Yeah.
Okay, you're whited out. There's no conscious thought whatsoever. In fact, he probably does not remember the end of that fight. He may not remember the aftermath.
Well, I'll tell you what he did do. He knew how in his mental mind somehow he weathered that storm and got through the round, and then he comes back out like the fucking savage animal trained killer that he was.
That's where the
And
training
look, you
comes
seen
in.
what he did. He ends up knocking the guy on his ass and knocking him out. So
That's
it's
where the training
amazing.
comes in. In other words, it's become instinctual. In other words, when you're wobbled, when you're exhausted, I always tell people that, one of the reasons I have guys get exhausted when they train, like for the sake of argument, you shark tag a guy. He's got a fresh opponent every 4 minutes. He doesn't get to rest, and he's got a fresh opponent every 4 minutes. Okay, so he's absolutely exhausted. Now, you're not looking for him to win each of those shark tags. You're looking for him to get through it and keep fighting, okay? Because now that's when he's digging down into instinct. The techniques he's using when he's that exhausted, those are the instinctual techniques.
Right. Those are the things that when I talk about being born with these attributes that you can't teach, it's just that, right? I mean, some people have a jaw that you could hit them 100 times like yourself and you're not going to knock them out. That's God-given gift, right?
Well,
Other guys can be as tough as can be and they have a glass jaw. I mean, there's things that you have.
There's things you bring to the table automatically. Some guys just hit hard.
And one of them's hard.
And I'm not talking about their technique.
Right.
And I'm not talking about their size. These guys at 147 pounds, and you swear they got bricks in their hands.
Yeah, they just have this God gift.
And sometimes they're not tremendously technical strikers. So everybody comes to the table with different attributes. And what you want to do is you want to try to maximize those attributes, is give them a style that maximizes those attributes while covering their lack of attributes in another way.
So how many times in your career as a teacher have you been able to take a kid who's done really good or so-so in the amateurs, move him on to the pros, and he's been a good pro fighter? Have you had the luck to have some of those?
I've had a couple guys who actually did better in their pro careers than they did in their amateur, but I will be honest with you, it was they took it seriously. They changed their attitude. Okay. Yeah. I've never had somebody who had the same attitude as an amateur switch to the pros with the same attitude and do better. It's always a guy who was half-assing it as an amateur that said to himself, if I'm going to go pro, I got to, in other words, it's usually after one of those conversations. Dude, if you want to be a pro, don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're not going to work, if you're going to come in, if you're going to book a fight, and then come in 2-3 times a week and train, let's not waste our time. I don't want the trip down to Miami to watch you play games.
Right.
Like you may win, but if you're not fighting up to your potential, why are you fighting if you're, as an amateur, I'll tolerate you a lot more than I will as a pro. As a pro, to me, there's a deal. If you're not going to work, I don't want to deal with you.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. You got a lot of kids out there that want to, come out and show their talents, and you got to work with them and give them opportunity. And if the guy's wasting your time,
I'm a little bit different than your average coach. Like I'm not. I run a finance business. I'm not in martial arts to make a living. Like I don't. Like I give my purses for pro grappling events to charities. Like it's like I'm not in this for the money. In other words, you are not a mortgage payment to me. You are not, it's kind of like, if I wouldn't have you over for a barbecue, I really don't want to teach you to beat people up. So the idea is my whole thing is a little bit different. It's kind of, and I tend to be brutally blunt. Dude, you just don't have it. It's like I'm doing you, if you come by and you tell me I want to be a pro fighter and I glove up with you, because this is what I used to do when I was younger. I'm a little bit like, these guys got the softer, mellower feel. And my old students always joke with my newer students, dude. The guys from New Jersey will meet guys from Vegas or Virginia and go, oh God, you don't know how lucky you got it. He's not crazy Phil anymore. But it's kind of, I used to strap the gloves on. I would drop your ass, okay? Look at you and say, do you still want to be a fighter? Because I figured I was saving everybody a lot of time and effort.
Where to
If you
find out
came
the
in to
answer.
learn self-defense, or you came in to learn how to fight, blah, 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 hey, cool. It's a slow journey. But if you come in and you tell me I want to fight in the UFC, that first class, you're getting your ass kicked. I'm
Well,
sorry.
Phil, you know, I think it's got to be important to make sure that the people coming in understand what they're getting into, right? You don't want somebody, and it's probably even more important to have to look a guy and hurt his feelings for a minute and say, you're not tough enough, you're not good enough, you're not going to be good enough, or at least I'm not good enough to train you to be good enough, but I'm not going to continue to do this because you're just going to get hurt, right? If you don't tell them that, then God
You're doing
forbid they
them a
get hurt.
disservice.
Yes, of course. I wouldn't want you to be saying to my son, hey, you know, you're so good, get back in there and you're fucking 0-15 and somebody's
The
giving them
great thing
brain
about
damage.
this, the great thing about combat sports, it's hard to lie. Okay. What I mean by that
Yeah,
is
it is. I can.
the mats don't lie.
Yeah, the numbers don't
I,
lie. The mats don't lie.
I can tell you you're doing great. If the other guy's sticking his right hand in your face 5 times every 30 seconds, you know I'm lying to
Yeah,
you.
he's telling you a whole different fucking story, right? And then when you look in the mirror after the fight and you go, man, you know, you got to soul search. You got to realize
I
that.
try to explain to people my first fight in Thailand. Okay, I was on my way to Burma. I took a fight in Thailand. Okay, I swear to God, at the time, like, you know, the fight's all foggy. It was my first fight. It was my first actual fight, and I was all amped up, and it was foggy afterwards. I swore he never hit me. Partied afterwards. I wake up in a hotel room with a chick. Okay, you know, it's kind of. I go into the bathroom. I splash water on my face. I'm naked. I look down. My hips are purple.
Yeah.
My eye is closed, and I'm like, I swore he never even hit me. Okay, the purple hips were from his knees. We were kneeing each other like hell in the clinch. Okay, he caught me with an elbow, and that's what closed my eye. But what's funny is I'll never forget sitting on the bed thinking to myself, I feel like this. I look like this, and I'm the winner. Okay, so it's kind of like it's not, you know, it's kind of look at Glover Texiera the other night, Teixeira. He fought. If you saw the pictures afterwards, oh my God.
Hey, sometimes the winner takes a beating too. When two real tough people are scrapping with each other, look at sometimes the guy who wins may lose the next one out. Right? That's how close of a match they are.
There's days you wake up in the morning pissing blood.
Yeah,
Sometimes just from hard sparring.
Yeah, it's a tough racket, man.
Yeah.
If anything, I hope this podcast, using your experience and your years of dedication and love, tells a young kid.
I'd really love to tell young kids thinking of doing this. Your first step is go to several schools and talk to the coaches.
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay, you know, you want to find somebody, and more than anything else, that you trust. Because remember, if he's doing it right, he's going to book your fights. He's going to negotiate with the promoters. His job, okay, your job as a fighter is to fight. His job is to protect you, not only from people trying to take advantage of you, but from yourself. In other words, like when I was young, we didn't have concussion protocols.
Yeah, right.
I see you sparring. You don't know how many times this happens. I see a guy sparring. He gets hit with a left hook. He gets the rubber knees. I step in and I say, "You're done for the night." "No, coach, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't take it." "You're done for the night. You're not sparring tomorrow night either." Okay, you argue, it's going to be 2 weeks.
Somebody's going to look out for the health and welfare of these people. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it.
Because, you know, having been through it myself, some of this stuff, like, you know, the immediate injury, like the shoulder, the broken ribs, the broken nose, the broken jaw, the missing teeth, you know the minute you do that.
You go through a whole hell of a lot just to enjoy fighting, right? You can't eat corn no more, or you got the one corn going, and you got a concussion, and you need a new hip, and you need a new
like, you know,
new shoulder and a new knee.
Take a look at me. I need knee reconstruction, shoulder replacement, and ankle surgery.
Yeah, I bet you had a good time, right?
Yeah, exactly. My 2 front teeth aren't mine. You know, it's kind of, my nose has been broken 16 times. You know, my jaw's been broken twice. The idea is it's one of those things that, like, table stakes are injury and pain. You better make friends with pain, because if you're training for a fight and something don't hurt, You ain't training hard enough.
Well, hey Phil, like I said, man, when you're a pro and you're a multimillionaire fighting for multi-millions of dollars, you're surrounded by all these people, right? And they're supposed to be looking out for you. But when you're an amateur, when you're a young fighter, they only have one person, and that's their coach. And you give a lot of people hope that the coach is doing the right thing. Number one, let's make sure the person who's fighting is safe. Let's make sure if he does get fights, they're not just throwing him in there for some money for themselves, that they're putting him in against somebody who the competition is equal, right? And if they're not good enough, tell them to get the fuck out of this game. If they don't have coaches like you doing that, too many people get hurt. And that's the scary part of this, because I don't always believe that everybody in this business is trying to do what's best for the student, but sometimes what's best for themselves.
Well, it's a multi-level system. You have the coaches, you have promoters, you have sanctioning bodies. Okay, and if everybody does their job properly, it would be great. But what happens is you get a lot of people who don't. You get promoters start to get to the point where they need to make a match, so they'll put a 1-and-1 guy in with a 12-and-1 guy.
Yeah, right.
That shouldn't happen. Okay.
But it would happen if somebody like you didn't say, whoa, time out. I'm not putting my fighter into that position. I don't give a shit how many seats you need to fill to make your money. I'm not taking this kid who's just starting out in this business and getting him hurt. He's got a wife, he's got a kid, he's got to train, he's got to work. You're just trying to fill the seats. I've seen that happen. I've seen it in the local boxing. I've seen it in the pro boxing. You throw somebody in there in the last, minute because the fighter got hurt, cut his eye in training. And a lot of times when you do that, very few times does a guy who gets thrown into that come out on top. Usually gets his ass
very
kicked.
few times does it work out for him long term.
Yeah. And this is not a game for the faint-hearted, right? This is a business where people can get hurt. And, we just seen a football player who actually died on the field, right? It was terrible, but it's not the first time. Maybe in football it is, but in boxing they've been killed. I'm sure MMA's had, throughout the years.
Actually, funny thing is, MMA has had a relatively good record with that.
I say MMA, but in the, sometimes I misuse the title. But people in mixed martial arts over the course of the years they've been fighting, people get hurt really bad.
Oh, they get hurt really bad, but there's been very few deaths, and the deaths that have happened were usually, this is going to find the first death in MMA was a guy named Douglas Dedge, who couldn't get permission to fight in the United States because he had a brain aneurysm.
Yeah,
so he goes to Russia and fights.
Yeah.
Ends up dying. But it's kind of like, and that's the one thing, one of the things that's good about the United States as opposed to other countries is you have to get medical stuff. Okay.
I guess my point, let me just rewind my point though. My point was that if it wasn't for coaches like yourself, making sure that the top priority is the health and welfare of these kids, there are vultures. There are vultures out there that will take advantage of them. There's coaches that will say, yeah, you're 5 and 15, get in there and fight. Somebody's got to step up once in a while and say, you're not good enough. I don't care if you hurt their feelings. It's better than taking their life, right?
We need to be the backstop.
Yeah,
okay. As coaches, I really feel we need to step up and be the backstop. Yeah. And our sole goal should be to not put people in a situation where they can't win.
Well, you're absolutely right. Here's what I've learned in this conversation and some of the other ones. This is a long, dedicated journey for anybody who wants to be part of it. It becomes part of their lives, and they go out there. If you really, truly want to be a MMA fighter, be it a pro, an amateur, or a person who's just going to spend the rest of their lives getting in shape, it's a grind.
Yes,
and you got to love it, and you got to be dedicated. And I think you got to be nuts.
Right. I have to close with one other thing now. And, I know at times when you start harping on the pain, the work, the sacrifice, it sounds a certain way. But personally, I've been able to see and do things I could have never imagined. Okay. I would not trade an ache, a pain, a broken bone, anything for my journey.
Hey, don't
Okay.
mistake my saying
Oh,
that for thinking that you don't do it because you love the
oh
game.
no,
I'm
yeah.
just
It's
saying
because
that.
I'm actually saying that more to, it's kind of like more to the kid listening. If you're willing to put in the work,
Yeah,
if you're
that
willing to embrace the grind, accept the suck, it will be a journey that not only takes you places that you never dreamed possible, but it'll also give you a skill set.
yeah,
Okay, I'm successful in business. I have a family.
absolutely.
I live on 85 acres in Virginia in a beautiful house. Okay, all because of the skills I learned
Yeah.
through training. I
That
never graduated high school. I never went to college. I've done well for myself, all because of the tools I got from getting beat up every day.
Yeah, and if you want to do this, then accept the fact that if you want to be one of the best, it is a lifetime grind. And you're going to grind and you're going to fight. And hey, listen, sometimes the pot of gold that you have doesn't necessarily mean it's $1,000,000, but it could be the travel that you get to see the other parts of the world, the training, the skills to become a good businessman. And one of the things that I've seen it do for a lot of people is take troubled kids and give them some character and give them a reason to change their lives and turn it around. So the success of MMA isn't always McGregor, boats, and millions, right? It could be, I just became a good kid, stopped getting in trouble, I got a job, I
The
train every
sole
day, and because of it, I'm a better man.
the sole reason I'm coaching in Virginia, the sole reason. Okay, if not for this, I would just be training someplace. Okay, the sole reason I'm coaching is because this changes lives.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen it. I've seen it change life. Not just MMA, but sports, mentorship, people who care. So many kids out there today don't have anybody to influence them in the right direction. Everybody's pushing them in the wrong fucking direction. That's
And
why the world is crazy.
sometimes it's just some crazy guy like me telling you, dude, you can do this. I believe in you. Sometimes that's all a kid needs to
I
change
agree,
his
Phil.
life.
I agree, and I have this this feeling that you're changing a lot of lives. And you know what? For all of you who are thinking about getting into the MMA fighting, just remember you got to be dedicated. You got to be a little bit crazy. You have to understand that to get to the 1% is really, really, really difficult, and that never may be your end result. But all of the things that we just talked about, character, people who care about you, giving you some kind of direction in life, those things are irreplaceable for all of us. And that, my friends, is what MMA is. It's not all about just kicking ass. It's about changing lives for the better. And I'm excited to have had this opportunity, Phil, to talk to you on
Yeah, I had a
numerous
great time.
occasions. I think you're a fantastic guy. I hope your school keeps taking and mentoring these kids. You know, maybe one day it would be great to see somebody hold the belt up and be a champ. But no matter what, when they walk in your door, the day they walk out, they're already champions. So keep up the good work. Keep spreading the good news. Good luck when you're 60 and you're fighting. If I make it to Virginia, I'll come in. I'll say hello. I ain't fighting you. I ain't headbutting you. I ain't grappling with you.
If
But
I
I'd
make
love
it
to-
up to New York again, I'll reach out to you.
I'd love to see the gym. I'd love to have a beer with you. I'd love to talk more about MMA. And I appreciate you taking us on this journey. And I want you to be safe. I wish you well in that fight. You're having a fight right after you're 60. Maybe you send me an email. Let me see how you did, will you?
Definitely will.
And keep in touch, man.
I
And
definitely will. Listen, have a great day, and I hope all of you got something out of this.
I think they did, man. If they didn't realize what this journey is before they started, they certainly know what it is now. So, hey, truth, lies, and political bullshit, MMA, and my good friend Phil. We'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
You've been listening to Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. Sick and tired of all the stuffy podcasts? We wanted to create something real, something raw, where there are no limits. Sean has held political office for 20 years. been a professional firefighter and been through hell and back. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. See you next time on Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.